Welcome to On Point. I'm Jocelyn Bonilla. Outside our studios here at Cal State Northridge, hundreds of students and faculty are demonstrating to make public education a higher priority, from the university level all the way down to elementary school level. Inside our studios, we will be talking about the challenges faced by our state's elementary schools, in particular, the standards and curriculum. We will be discussing policies from past administrations and changes soon to come. Joining us today are Lynn from the Education Department here at Cal State Northridge and Ana Valenzuela, Title I and English Learners Coordinator at Hazeltine Avenue Elementary in Van Nuys. Welcome to the show and thank you for being here today. So I'd like to start with you, Lynn. And what does the set curriculum that is implemented in elementary schools consist of?
Well, teachers are asked to teach to the state standards, and California has identified standards in every area of the curriculum, and if anybody wants to know what's a third grader supposed to know, we direct them to the California Department of Education website where all the standards are listed for reading and language arts, math, science, health, PE, and so on. So teachers are tasked with teaching to the state standards, and that's what kids are supposed to know and what teachers are supposed to teach. Teachers are also expected to follow the policies and curriculum dictates of their school district. And as we've discussed previously, the No Child Left Behind legislation has mandated that phonics be a part of a good beginning reading program, and they have adopted, for the most part, many schools have adopted the open court curriculum, and the districts provide pacing plans to the teachers and say, okay, everybody should be following that curriculum. So there's a lot going on. Everybody's very well intentioned, and there's a lot of pressure on teachers, administrators, and students to meet the standards.
You mentioned the open court program. Can you explain a little bit about that?
The Open Court program is published, I think, by Scholastic, and it's a curriculum for reading and language arts. The language arts consist of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So it is meant to be a comprehensive language development and reading program. And it's, there's comprehension, vocabulary, phonics, fluency, all these components of a good reading instruction program are meant to be built into the program.
Now, what effects has a narrow curriculum that focuses primarily in reading and math, what effect has it had in classrooms?
The state has identified that we have too many students in California who are lagging in reading skills, and so the teachers are teaching, trying to get everybody's skills up to speed. And I guess I'm not really sure on your question. What's your question?
Well, I know that there's a big emphasis on math and reading, right?
Right.
So how has that narrowed the curriculum?
Oh, okay. Many critics have identified that maybe there's not enough room in the curriculum for the arts, music, and the creative endeavors that we want children to also be pursuing. And I think they do have a point there. I think in some cases the extra space in the day is being squeezed away for well-intentioned purposes. So that is regrettable.
So would you say it has taken away the benefits of a broader education?
I think in many cases, yes.
What would you have to say about that, Anna?
I've seen, especially in schools like ours, in which we have a lot of kids that are language learners, we devote a lot of time teaching them to read because in their native languages they don't have some of the sounds that are part of the English system. So sometimes it's really hard for our teachers to fit even science and social studies. So I do think kids are missing out on those things that maybe their strengths. We have kids that love science, and they would be good at science if they were just given the chance, the opportunity. And I'm not saying teachers are not trying, but like she said, it's very well intentioned because we want them to read and write and know math because that's where the competition is, but they are missing out on having a broader education, like you said before.
You mentioned teachers. Like, what expectations and what pressures do teachers face to follow this curriculum and standards?
Right now, I think it's really hard to be in the classroom, to be a classroom teacher. It's not only the amount of different needs that you get, the spectrum of the needs, but it's also the class size that it's increasing now. We see the difference just this year in which we went from 20 students in the lower grades to 24, in some cases 25 or 26, and you can tell the teachers are struggling and are stressing about it. And then with the reduction of the budgets, we have less people out of the classroom to give support. So it is hard in that part. Then there's all these expectations, and we hear all these in the media about merit pay and different perspectives of what that means. We never get a specific, well, what does merit say? Is it based on the CST results, or is it based on what I do in the classroom? Because, you know, we have kids that are not good test takers, but they're good in what they do every day. So it's that pressure, is the pressure of what you just mentioned before, that a lot of teachers are losing their jobs. That's where we have people having, there's manifestations and people talking everywhere. So it's a lot of pressures, and if to that you add the fact that they have to teach the kids to read and write when we have a lot of newcomers to the country. We have kids coming with this much English, nothing, and some of them not even proficient in their own language.
All right, which leads me to my next point. The California State Education Department states that standards help to ensure equity and access for all. So where do English as second language learner students fall under these standards?
Well, I think what our district did and most districts did is they came up with language learners curriculum, or ELD, English Language Development. So, for example, LA Unified has ELD portfolios, which follow standards. They're standards based, but then they have accommodations for language learners. So let's say that one of the standards is to know all the sounds of the alphabet. In the portfolio for an ELD level 1, let's say, which is the first one, we'll say with some support, or with, so it will be just like an accommodation, but it would be the same standard. And once you get, since they just break them down into kindergarten through second grade, and then third grade to fifth grade, sometimes the ELD standard seems to be harder to achieve than the regular ELA standard, English Language Arts standard. But it's not. It's just because it's a span, and there's parts of every single grade level embedded in that curriculum. So let's say a third grader, it's not going to be able to write by themselves a persuasive letter, because that will be a fifth grade standard, but they can do it with assistance, you know? So we're just trying to make sure that by the time our kids reclassify, they're not considered language learners anymore. They have the skills, and they have proven that they can function in English at all levels.